I'm going to give this a minute to see if anybody shows up. I got asked this last night, and I kind of hem-hawed around it because I didn't want to get into the drama. But I think there's something I need to say for the reason why I don't want to get into the drama. And I'm going to give it a minute and see if anybody pops in, and then we'll talk about the drama. It seems like all the internet is good for lately is drama. And we have this massive platform to have information at our fingertips and to communicate effectively as adults. And we don't use it, or we don't use it appropriately. So let me preface this by saying I am a retired parole officer. I supervised anyone that was at the felony level. I have supervised anyone at the felony level, any kind of supervision. I've supervised them from low-level felony probation all the way up to interstate compact, to sex offenders. I've supervised every color of the rainbow if they've had a felony conviction. So I'm wanted to get on here, and I don't want to like stand up for anyone that is pending charges, but I also don't want to watch someone be publicly convicted before he's convicted in court. And I just want to make everyone aware, be careful what you're listening to, be careful who you're listening to, be careful what you're listening to, be careful what you run with, that you say to someone else's fact. Now I've listened to a couple of channels, and they're like, well, this man is horrible. He has these new charges. He has these, okay, yes, he has pending charges. He has pending charges that have not gone to court yet because they can't find a disposition. Have I done a super deep dive? No, I've just done a very shallow dive to see if he is a registered offender. I can't find anything, because even if he was a registered sex offender from another state, he would still have to register in Tennessee if he moved here, unless he was here illegally, which would already be on the radar because he's in the public eye now. So toss that one out. I do a offender search, a felony offender search, to see if there's any criminal convictions in Tennessee of which he's being supervised for, monitored for in any way. Nothing. So he may have a misdemeanor rap sheet. Good morning, Wayne. He may have a misdemeanor rap sheet in Tennessee. He may have an extensive rap sheet in other states. But if he was a sex offender, no matter where he was, he would have to register when he moved to Tennessee. And if he didn't register, he would already be in violation of his regulations and have another charge to be in custody. Because when they arrested him on the other stuff, it ping, 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 the network would have gone crazy. I'm just telling you. So I was listening, I keep hearing people say, well, he's an offender. He's not legally at this time. There is no conviction for those. There's no disposition for those charges. There's no conviction. And then people saying, well, he was bonded out, so he must have an ankle monitor. Why? Good morning, Lip Lock. People are saying, well, he was bonded out, so he must have an ankle monitor. Pretrial supervision in the criminal component is a very minuscule option for judges because it has to meet certain requirements. And from what I can tell from dispositions, there was no pretrial supervision placed on this pending the court date, pending however they're going to go through it, whether he's going to end up pleading out or going to trial. And for most of y'all, you need to remember that ankle monitoring is a punitive measure for people that have committed an offense, been convicted, admitted guilt. So it's a very expensive option as well. So they're not just going to slap a monitor on anyone. It's a time-consuming issue to where the court has to make an officer dedicate, X amount of hours a month to another human being, while they already have 60 to 80 that are taking up their time. So it's something that is only used in certain cases. So there's no reason why he would be monitored at this time. No whatsoever. And is that like the best option? Probably not. I mean, let's just be honest, probably not. But until there is a conviction in our nation, you're innocent. And so I just want people to just be aware. There's a lot of people talking, but there's not a lot of factual data or evidence to prove kind of some theories and stuff. And it's great to talk about theories, it's great to throw it on the table, but when you specifically mention people's names and you start to attach these emotional responses you're having as factual evidence, you have to be careful, because that could turn into something horrible. Number one is defamation, but number two, you could create, the public conviction of someone who's never going to be able to work again. And these charges are not played out yet, so we don't have that right to issue a punitive measure on this man yet. Does my spidey senses go off with all of this? Yeah, that's a healthy sixth sense that adults should have, especially when they're parents. But you have to be so careful. So careful. And so that's just what I wanted to get on here this morning and say. And, everybody's expecting that for the charges he should be monitored. We should know where he is every moment of every day. And if we monitored every person that had a moderately serious, questionable crime, our officers could not monitor the people that had serious convictions. There wouldn't be the money, time, or personnel. So do we monitor the people that actually have admitted guilt, or do we monitor the people that we don't know about yet? Well, you monitor the people that have actually admitted guilt. So you have to be careful, and I know a lot of people are probably from different areas, from different countries, and they don't understand maybe the laws or anything like that. But the accountability on him would be showing up on multiple screens, on multiple databases, if he was already registered, already convicted of criminal sex offenses, there would be such that you can't imagine the radars that would be pinging for law enforcement, and the trail that you would find. And I'm not seeing the data for that. Now, if somebody has found something that they would like to share with me, that would be great. But the first two places you should always go if you're within Tennessee is to the Felony Offender Information Lookup, which is called FOIL. And you can enter a name. You can randomly search names to see if anyone near you is in jail, it'll say either in jail or if they're out and on supervision, it'll have the site location of the supervision. For sex offenders, you go to TBI, to the Sex Offender Registry, and you can look up by name, by county. I mean, there's so many parameters that you can put in the search bar. You can look up anyone by zip code, county. I mean, it's just, you should go do it. You should be aware. But at the same time, use these things. Use VineLink. If you wonder if someone's been in custody anywhere across the nation, use VineLink. And if someone is in custody that you're concerned about, use VineLink to register to follow them, so that every time their body physically moves, you're alerted by email. It's really easy. It's really easy to be aware. It's really easy to do just a few simple things to make sure that you're passing along quality information. So these are just a few tips that I would have for people. And if you're really concerned, start calling county clerk's office and asking if there's misdemeanor convictions for someone, if there's felony convictions for someone, if there's been a disposition but no judgment order has been sent to the state as of yet, because they send them in bulk. So they may have 3 or 4 court sessions in rural courts where they bulk up and hang on to 300 or 400 judgment orders and then send them in to sentence management into the state all at the same time. So, just do your research, do your background, and if you have, if you want to be able to say a specific blurb about somebody, make sure that you've done the research to own the blurb. Is all I'm saying. Now, people are going to come under and say, she's trying to protect a predator. I'm not trying to protect a predator. I'm not trying to protect anyone specifically. I'm trying to make sure that when we as adults come on this platform, we are not allowing a creative license when it comes to factual evidence about other people and their conviction backgrounds and predispositions, because I would not want someone to come on this platform and creatively express what they thought about me. I would want the actual proof to have to then be used to make everyone aware, So you just have to be careful. Just be careful. And I can't stress that enough. Be careful. And it's because how you treat others is the way that you will be treated. You have to be very careful here. So be aware and try to do the right thing and try to do your background. Like I said, if you found something else that I need to be aware of, because I just did a very shallow, search to see, because there's very easy ways to see if there is, any of these types of convictions nationwide. If you have something that I need to see, please, let me know below. But otherwise, you have to be careful. And as far as Dawn's behavior the other night on the internet, I told you all from the beginning, this is a manipulation show. This is a reality TV event for them. This is about power. And people go, what? They lost their job. Yeah, there's suspicious issues around the missing child. And if you look at many cases where children have been missing, then there is a power dynamic that is off. And I see that, very openly. I can witness that. Now, can I say that it convicts the man? No. I can say I see a causal relationship from my background, but I can't convict the man. But I can say, be aware that I have witnessed this. His behavior is atrocious. You can understand if he is that easily triggered and flighty, that, there would be reason to be concerned about children in the home that may witness that behavior. We're starting to see the breakdown, because the master manipulators, I believe that they think they are not. And so they've run the show about as far as they can. And so now we're going to witness the breakdown. And will we ever know the truth? I don't know. I hope one day we do. Because it would empower and help so many other parents to not end up in this scenario, and so many children. But you have to be careful. And I can express opinions all day long, but I can't come on here and convict and state with certainty, and you just have to be so careful. And I try to be careful, and I get irritated with people, and I emotionally respond to people, but I have witnessed hearing people say, he is an offender who should be monitored. Just because he has pending charges doesn't mean he's an offender. You have to be convicted to be an offender, because being an offender is a punitive relationship with the state you're in. Just, and I want you all, good morning, I want you all to follow that logic and understand that. I'm not standing up for the man. Anything he did in any association to get charges like that is, we should all be concerned. But that concern should not turn into us trying to convict this man before he's gone to court. Oh, look like you're going to the vet's office. I hope everything goes okay. I'm starting to feel better. I still look like hammered crap. I'm starting to feel better, so I'm trying to get caught up on everything. Yeah, you said no kidding. They're already pretty much, accused, tried, and convicted. Yes. And this is the social drama momentum that I speak out against so much. And the thing is this kind of impulse, it's just almost like the floodgates open, but this kind of impulse, this negative impulse attack, isn't it odd that it only goes in negative ways? Like, you never see it go in a positive way. Like you never see someone that actually has a reason to be upset, be able to use the reason to be upset. But if you don't have a reason to be upset, you just have an emotion, run with it. Oh, what is wrong with our nation? What is wrong with our nation? I'm flabbergasted. And don't get me started on the child trafficking, and then you go on certain channels, and listen, I am a psychology major, and I am a bit different, because I see the absolute BS that psychology has pushed into social existence in the last 50, 60 years or more. They use psychology and the business of psychology for very dark, horrible things when it first started being really understood. So to say that psychology and all these new mental health treatments and it is positive, no. It's not. And I always try to break that down and make you all aware of why I feel that way. But let me just explain where we've gone. We've gone from families that used to be so loving and intertwined and connected that the parents were normally the first ones to suspect when something was wrong, because they were so attached and connected emotionally, physically, mentally with their children. Well, now where it takes 2 incomes or more to make a home run. Your children are pawned off at the age of 3 to state and federally funded preschools and daycares and schools. You spend more time at the nail salon every week than you do with your child. Most women spend more time on their beauty measures every week than they do on their children. As you can see, I did not. Time caught up with me. And then we wonder why our children are being lost. We wonder why our children are slipping away. We wonder why parents don't see things that are going on. Because it used to be parents were so invested in their children. That was their creations. That was what they brought to this planet. That was their legacy. Now children are just inconveniences. Now when there's a problem, the child takes it to a stranger, because we've reduced the family and demoralized the family to where we don't trust families at all. Now, are there issues? Are there cases where families should not be trusted? Yeah. But it should not be a first jump scenario. It should not be a first jump scenario to dismantle a family and create irrevocable harm before you find out the facts. And what I witnessed working in the field is that families were torn apart, and they could never come back and heal from that. And many times the family was torn apart and there was never a conviction, there was never a charge that could be placed. There was never anything that could punitively be done, but they had dismantled this family, taken the children away, and irrevocably harmed the unit and the safety of that unit for those children in their minds. And the family could never come back from that. All because we don't want to trust parents first. And I'm not saying we should always trust parents, but we should have more of a gauge. We should have more of a discernment when it comes to these things. I would certainly hope that as someone who birthed 2 children from my vajayjay, that when someone thought something was wrong with those 2 beings that I brought forth, they would come to me. That they would not go to the state. They would not go to the government. But in the last 25 years, we have really created a place where children and their emotions are taught to not be safe at home. Do not tell your parents. They will not understand. Go tell a perfect stranger in a group of strangers. You'll be accepted there more. But also on the side, don't take candy from a stranger in a van. But trust all these other strangers that are going to just absolutely tear your life apart, manipulate you, ask you horrible questions, and infiltrate your mind and your emotional sanctuary and break you down to say they're building you up, but you never get there again. There is a lot of harm that goes on from a psychological treatment standpoint, from a mental health standpoint. And I think people think that mental health is, like you see the commercials everywhere, and they're like, you can now go online in 5 minutes with a counselor. Listen, if you're just spending 5 minutes with a counselor every couple of weeks, you're not working on shit. You don't have a problem. You have an attention issue. If you had a problem, you would be so non-functional, you would know you have a problem, So we've gotten to where we want to, salve a gaping wound. And then, as parents, we'll salve a gaping wound because we don't want to overcorrect and trigger anybody. But as the government, they will literally come in and put a Band-Aid over a hair follicle. It's just completely inappropriate responses on either side. It should be the other way. Parents should be the ones overreacting and protecting their children. And, you got to think about the way that in the last 30 to 50 years we've dismantled this entire nation, the family component. And it's been through mental health practices. Been through people that have been board certified and licensed. You got to be careful about that. Yeah, defamation of character is a real thing. And while I certainly don't, if he's done something to be in association to get these charges, then yeah, you should, your spidey senses should go, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this. That's just good logic. But you can't then go and condemn the man. You can't. And you have to also, like I've preached this several times, you know, I've met some really horrible, and listen, you're not going to get coddled on my channel. So if you come here and you have a history of assault, you have a history of abuse, I'm going to say the words, because whether I say SA or sexual abuse, you know what it means. Don't play pansy with me and say that the words hurt less than the letters. It has the same meaning. It should have the same impact. You should learn to handle that phrase, because that empowerment is going to help you over so many hurdles. If you can't say the words, how can you handle the emotions? Say the words. Get real comfy with them. Get real comfy with your story. Get real comfy with what's happened to you. Get real comfy with expressing it to other people. Because that's where your power is. That's your story. So, you have to be so careful. You have to be so careful. But you also have to be aware that a lot of people that are convicted do so in plea agreements because they can't stay in custody or stay attached and financially fixed to the court for 2 years pending a trial. So they will go through a plea agreement and plead down to a lesser charge that may still be a sex offense. And they may be convicted of something they did not do. If it had gone to trial, they would not have been convicted of, but they could not give 2 years of their life, lose their family, their business, their everything. And they just weighed the options and said, I'll just admit guilt to a lesser charge and try to move on. And then we've got people go, oh, you know what he was convicted of? Do you know what that means he did? Okay, listen, if you're that concerned, go and ask for a redacted form of the paperwork on the case and get to know that individual and what happened in court. It's public record. Certain instances about the victims may be redacted to protect, but you will get a lot of paperwork that will help you understand what happened. And if you are someone that wants to exactly know, go sit your butt in court and watch it take place. Court's open. Go watch. Even if it's on video now, you go to a courtroom, you watch it on a screen, and they have you have to have 6 feet between people on the pews, but you can still watch it on the screen happen in the next room. So you're watching the active interaction with the court, and you get all the information, all of it, the nitty gritty. So you just have to be so careful about when you get into this and you start talking about convictions and character and responsibilities to states. And you just have to be so careful. You just have to be so careful. And yes, I have grave issues with where our society is going, because people here have gotten so triggered with the missing children, the child trafficking, and the sex abuse. But they're so triggered, and we're so mad about this, but we can't talk about it. We can't say the words. I don't want to hurt you. I think they were probably hurt already. And it would probably be healthy to talk about it with real words that have real meanings, that have real conversation and dialogue, rather than to skirt around the issue and make them feel like they can't stamp on that and say, yes, that happened to me. I get to own that. Rather than pensively go up to it like a mouse going up to a trap, wanting that cheese, going, I think I can do this, but it may hurt. No, I want you to own that. I want you to come to a place where you're so comfortable talking about that. You're so comfortable saying that you are angry, or you are upset, or you are working on this, or you're trying to overcome this. Don't back away from what has hurt you. It will just continue to hurt you. Do some immersion therapy. Get up on that bitch and say hello. Talk to it. Have some communication with yourself. It already occurred. Why am I so scared of the words? Am I being trained to be scared of the words so that we can't have healthy dialogues in this country? Have you seen a healthy dialogue in this country in 3 years? I haven't. But you can go on and I can talk about everything and be perfectly fine. But if I mess up and say words instead of letters, people freak out. Why? Do you think the letters hurt any less than the words? Do you think the words hurt any less than the actions? Do you think the emotions and the mental images triggered are not the same? Do you not think there's a consistent congruency along that line of abuse that people deal with daily? Are we just creating lies and a narrative within our head so that we can think we're helping people overcome their problems by just breeding more? Are we constantly telling people to trust strangers with their secrets rather than to trust their own family? Are we constantly telling people to not go to people that love them to talk about issues, but go to people that they don't know, that they will have better reception from strangers? Well, where do you get better reception from strangers when you really take bad news? Where do you get the balance of accountability, belief, suspicion, and emotional investment? Because you need to have all of those things when people start talking about these topics. I just don't, I just don't understand. People get so triggered, and then they're so worried that, like, and I've dealt with a lot of people that have been abused. I've dealt with a lot of people that have been in horrible, horrible scenarios. And this is how I know how they feel about this. They tell me how they feel about this. Okay, you said there was a nurse who worked in the community, and you had to do, yeah. And if you're in certain places, you're a mandatory reporter. I was a mandatory reporter in my careers, and I still, in my heart, am a mandatory reporter. But does that mean that I do absolutely no questioning to myself? I do absolutely no, like, investigation into why I'm having this emotional response and try to discern a little bit. There's a lot of accountability that never occurs. And we pass it on. We think the accountability is just telling someone else, telling someone else, telling someone else, telling someone else. And so it takes these kids 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 months to get to a place where they're actually being healed. Because we passed the buck. Doing something big in this country is now basically equated to passing the buck. But ask yourself these questions. Why are we so terrified about adults now? Parents in particular. Not like convicted criminals, because no, we march for their rights and to restore their integrity. But just everyday parents we're super concerned about. Have you noticed the shift? Have you noticed where criminals that have convictions are protected, but people that are not criminally convicted are already socially convicted? You just have to be so careful. There's no way that you cannot walk through all of these topics and end up in mud somewhere. There's no way. There's too much that could go wrong in any parameter. There are too many questions, but you have to have a level of discernment. And are there horrible people that when you see something that immediately tells you something's wrong that you should report? Oh yeah, there are. There are absolutely. But are there thousands, hundreds of thousands of families that are reported for vengeance and non-issues that have their families torn apart every day? Yeah, there are. But we've come to a place where we have to tell our government. I find that troubling, to where when all of the trust goes to the government. I find that very troubling. Because if you don't talk about it to the family, if you don't go to the kid, talk to the family, and then move forward, you completely take the family out of the loop. You completely remove any kind of interaction out of the loop. And it's almost like communism in China. You take it to the government because the government wants to handle it, because they don't want the community to know what's going on. Better that the child disappear, be replaced, the family go to jail, and blip, there's a blip on the radar screen, than have the people know what's going on. Now ask yourself, since all of this psychology crap started, and I sit here with a master's in psychology and have counseled, but I'd be very leery. Be very leery of the overwhelming response to how easy, accessible, and immediate that you should have, you know, this attachment to a therapist, or you should have this attachment to go to therapy, or you should have this desire to, you know, just spew your troubles to a perfect stranger. Have a little bit of skepticism to you. So, you know, it's just healthy. It's just healthy. It's just healthy. Because look at the last 30, 40 years. What has happened to families? The government tore more apart than probably divorce has ever. We've had just as many kids abused in state and federally funded safe houses as abused in families. Will abuse, sexual assault, emotional abuse, will it ever stop? No. No. You can't stop pure evil. It will always be there. But when you shut your mouth and close your eyes, as opposed to use all of your senses and all of your integrity and all of yourself to discern something that's going on, you reduce the power of the people that should care the most. And then we get dull, we get numb, we don't respond. We think it's somebody else's job to take care of this. Oh, you have a problem, go to therapy. Yes, I'm your mother, but go to therapy. I've got to tan today and get my nails done and get my roots fixed. Go to therapy. Tell your therapist. Save it for your therapist. That was a big phrase, you know. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? When everybody knows when you have a true friend that loves you, you can take anything to them. And that is where you get the most comfort and the most emotionally appropriate responses and the most power to heal. Why are we removing a lot of people that could have that power to heal in a familial way and putting them into a sterile box to which they almost never recover from? What has happened to the family in the last 50 years? Freud tried to bring everything down to oral fixations and sex. I don't know if any of y'all figured it out, but Freud was a big perv. He used pretty words. But his ages and fixation, no. No. Now that we're understanding more about the brain, the functioning, the development, and how we can use brain tracking and how the different sections in the synapses light up to show behaviors, intrinsic behaviors. They have studies going on over in like Norway or Netherlands or somewhere over there where they've created a, this is so weird, they've created a virtual reality victim because they think in that if they're doing that, no one's getting hurt. But you're still creating an impulse in someone that is a predator. So how they think that they're not going to get someone else hurt by creating a virtual reality victim, I'm not sure. Because they're still allowing an avenue for abuse. Even if he thinks it's on a virtual reality person, he is still enacting his predatory skills. It's still predation to him. When your cat chases the little mouse toy or a cat treat across the floor, he doesn't act differently with which he goes after each the same. He just enjoys eating the cat treat more. But he'll go after both of them, won't he? Yeah, he will. So they're trying to understand these impulses. And they're watching these synapses light up so they can hook somebody up. And if they give them these virtual reality feeds, then they can see the synapses light up in the brain, and they know if there's a certain mapping to it, that's someone that has a predatory nature. That is someone that is going to have an attraction to a younger child. That is someone that is going to probably not be conducive to society and may have a level of psychopathy we probably need to be aware about. They're learning all this. Well, now you're sitting here going, wow, that's amazing. It's amazing because if they're that far into it, they've reverse engineered it for how long? How long have they known about these triggers and these chemical and neural responses and withheld that information to benefit themselves while they've let families go through this mediocre way of trying to handle these scenarios? It's strange. I mean, it's just really strange. It's just terribly strange. And, y'all can say everyone needs to report. Everyone needs to report. And if the system worked the way it should, that would be the answer. That would be the answer. But the system is flawed. And the system is for profit. I don't care what they want to say. They're for profit. So you know that Tennessee prisons are for profit. They make profit. I was expected to at least send 30% of my caseload back to prison within a year. Recidivism should have been between 30 and 37% to keep them in a profitable margin. Keep them in, yeah. No, but the system is not working. It's not working. So if I've got a doorbell that I know isn't working, or I can knock on the door, why would I continue to push the doorbell? Why would I not have a moment to go, maybe I need to also knock on the door? So for these people that do these little, I go to the park and I watch other parents, and I'm hyper aware, and if I think there's something wrong, I'm going to call DCS on you. Listen, if you sit there in that paranoid, delusional state, you will find something wrong with everyone that you meet. Because you want to. Because you're feeding your own drama. You're feeding your own desire. And there is a power fixation that comes from this. So I'm just saying, be aware. Counsel yourself. Look inward. What are you trying to do? Is it what's best for the child? Think about what occurs. Look at the ratios of positive to negative in family courts. Go and read the horrible nightmare cases where parents that did nothing had their children removed. Like, oh my God, the other night in Georgia, there was a brand new father. A father and mother had a brand new baby. It was 21 days old. It was spitting up way too much of its food. They were concerned because they're new parents and they don't have a lot of support, with their family and stuff. And they were concerned, so they took their baby to the emergency room. The emergency room did multiple tests, started multiple IVs, could not find anything wrong with this child. Nothing wrong with this child. Nothing. They would not speak to the parents. They immediately called law enforcement. They pushed the father out of the hospital, and they said, we're going to do a spinal tap now to make sure your child is well. He goes, why are you doing a spinal tap if nothing else is coming back bad? And our concern was the vomiting. If you think it may just be a food allergy, the wrong milk, the wrong formula, or holding them at the wrong angle after feeding, why are we not starting, if there's nothing triggering on the test, why are we not starting here? Why are we going to, we're going to take a chance on rendering your child, paralyzed with a spinal tap. I had a child that was forced to go through a spinal tap at 3.5 weeks. And let me tell you, as a parent, that is not an easy decision because that is a very dangerous thing. So the parents were like, no, we don't want you to do a spinal tap. If you're not concerned, if you're not able to find anything else, then we feel better now. It's probably something simple. We'll follow up with our PCP. Oh, no. Then they told them they were moving the child. They were taking it to another state because it was the nearest pediatric. They had no pediatrician or anything on hand at that hospital. It was the nearest pediatric hospital to another state. No consent from the parents. Removed the parents from the hospital. Not even communicating with the parents now. Have they been contacted by law enforcement? Have they been formally spoken to about suspicions or possible pending charge? No. Nothing's wrong with this child. These parents, can you imagine what they're going through? Not to mention a newborn removed from every sensation that is comforting. And yet there are still people that, well, they did right. They did absolutely right. They should have removed that baby immediately. You won't even let me tie my dog in the backyard. But you want to rip newborns from mothers' arms without any knowledge or proof that anything's going on in the home because you feel bad. Well, let me tell you something that Americans haven't done well in about 60 years. Emotional accountability. That is why we have 80% of our population in some kind of therapeutic intervention program. They have broken us down to where we do not think straight. We do not trust the people we should be building hellacious bonds with. Bonds that got people through the freaking dark ages hundreds of years ago. We have discredited humanity and the human component and the human heart and goodness. But boy, if someone's convicted of something, how dare you speak horribly of him? But now my neighbor, she made brownies and she put walnuts in the brownies even though she knows that 3 miles over at the secondary school where my other child goes, that he's allergic to nuts and he could have had a reaction if he had gotten a whiff of that 3 miles down the road. She needs to have DCS call on her. People actually do these things. So I'm just telling you that many of the programs and the intervention and accountability interventions that people think they have, they're flawed. They're flawed. Be very aware before you walk into them. And if you're fixing to do a mandatory report, you better be 100% in your heart that what you're doing is right. Because I'm here to tell you, even if you leave an anonymous report, it's not anonymous. And if you if you report multiple times and it's false, then you're going to end up with charges. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. Nothing you do is anonymous in this world. Yes, no, yeah. Valkyrie, yeah, that's it. And so I see this push. Like, if you watch anything today, please go watch The Fallen State with Jesse Peterson. And the interview he did with Awkward this morning, or yesterday. This man that is talking to him, and I may do a reaction to it, and this man is like a huge BLM Antifa man. He's all for it. And then Jesse Peterson's like, well, if Antifa is sure about what they're doing, and they know it's the right thing, why do they hide their face? And he's like, well, the same reason the Klan hid their face. The same reason that his men hid their faces when they did their horrible deeds. As someone that has had a lot of extra training, what you thought was a very good protective point, you just basically stated, we don't like these people and they did horrible atrocities, but we're going to mimic their behavior so that we get a power grab, so that we can control you so that atrocities don't happen again. How do you think atrocities happen? Do you not think repetitive momentum will just create another atrocity? Hello. And I'm just sitting here, and this man, and then he refused to speak. He refused to speak. And so Jesse Peterson said, okay, well, if you were for those groups covering their faces, then you're for the other groups covering their faces. This is cool if they don't want to be seen, if they've got to create a movement in their world and not be seen. If I'm creating a movement in my world that's positive, I want my face plastered everywhere. Because I want you to know who was saying, get your crap in order. Someone is coming after your integrity, your home, your power as a parent, your power as a citizen. I want you to know that that was me that told you that. I don't want to hide and say, I hope you figure this out because I'm gonna force these atrocities upon you and these behaviors upon you. I just hope you figure it out. Trick or treat. Wear a mask. I want you to know. Because if I feel that strongly that something is going wrong in your world, I'm going to care enough to show my face. But that's what's wrong in this nation, is while we have all these programs that are supposed to salvage these children, we have no programs that salvage families. None. And if you start talking about a nuclear family, oh my God, well, aren't you so lucky to have a nuclear family? Yes, I was. I was so lucky to have a nuclear family. I would like to share that with you. If you were not that lucky, I would like to talk to you about that. And then I would like to compare what we grew up in and find ways that we are the same, the ways that we are different, and discuss how it affected us and how we emotionally matured and how we physically responded to stimuli in this nation. Yeah, I want to talk about it all. That's healthy. But oh my God, I'm not going to talk about it because you think you're so much better than me. No, I don't. There is no better or worse ratio when it comes to a family. We all grow up in what we consider a family. The juxtaposition of adults to children and grandmas to parents, to moms and dads, what you grow up in is your family. Let's really start looking at the family component and how it truly affects people as to just giving them an out and shutting down any kind of talking points. Let's figure this out. Because obviously shutting down the family and its talking points and it handling some of the internal combustion that happens, and you know something, I'm just going to tell you that most families go through some shit. If you're a family that went through no shit and you raised more than 2 children, please write a book, publish it, and walk around like your shit don't stink. Please. Because it don't. You will be godlike on this world. I mean, Jesus, step aside. We have a new one. But all families go through shit. Because humans, we're flawed. We're dysfunctional at our core. Normal. Everybody that tries to measure something by what they consider normal is on a different radar screen for everybody. And it's like, ugh, stop trying to create a normalcy and start dealing with the true dysfunctionality. So and so when I see people jumping on and just completely just jumping to condemnation, why as a nation do we jump to condemnation to people that are not condemned, but people that have admitted to horrible, horrible things and have criminal convictions, we protect? Why are we so backwards in this country? Why do we distrust parents, but we want their children to talk to strangers? Why do we know that key, integral formation structures in children's brain comes from intimate contact? And I'm talking about being held, being loved, being stroked and patted, being played with. You ever seen like the mama horses play with the fillies and the colts in the fields? And they get in there and they get just as rowdy as the colts and they teach them, oh, that was wrong. Okay, that's okay, so you can do that. That's fine. You see this interaction, this information exchange. And that filly or that colt starts to go, oh, I can't do that. No, that creates a negative response in my mother. But as people who are supposed to have brains so much larger, you only have one way that you can respond to your child, and everything else is inappropriate. And while we know that all of these things that create growth and ability and emotional maturity, all these things are great, and this intimate emotional contact, we have gotten to where we're so scared to have intimate emotional contact with our children because people may think it's creepy. So we're putting our kids out on this emotional island, and we're distancing ourselves from really truly raising emotionally responsible and accountable adults because we're scared of what someone else may say. And I guarantee you that the someone else that said it did not knock on your door, did not ask you a question, did not tell you of their concerns. Because that's not how we do it anymore in this nation. We tell our government, just like good Chinese. We remove it from the accountability of the family, from the community. We don't respond to anything at a communal level. We go bloop, and push it to the side and tell our government, please fix this for us. We don't know how. And then we wonder why they hand it back to us completely effed up. And we go, well, we could have done way better. Well, really? Well, we have the power now, so shut your mouth. Yes, sir. And you wonder how they got the power? You handed it to them. You handed it to them. You might as well have ripped a gold star off somebody's jacket and ran to the popo. Yes, there are monsters in this nation. Yes, there are people that need to be reported and have their children removed. Yes, there are all these grave, horrible, awful things in this world. I have witnessed, from my time in being a parole officer and my time being a counselor and working with juveniles with trauma and addiction backgrounds. Oh, yeah, there's bad, bad things. Well, I'm going to tell you also, I've seen far worse happen to children in institutional safe holds. Predators are everywhere. They're not just in families. They're not just skeezy uncles. They're in positions of power and authority. And you just hand your neighbor's child over, or your extended family member's child over like a plate of cookies to an agency you know nothing about. Be sure when you do that, you're ready to sit by a judge with your hand on a Bible and answer for that. Because nothing is truly anonymous. Nothing. Nothing. Would I like to see every child in a safe, happy, loving, caring home? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've worked with kids. I just wanted to bring them all home and adopt them all. Just so that they knew love. Just so that they knew a safe place. Just so that they saw someone respond to them appropriately. I just wanted to adopt them all. I've seen kids be adopted with their twin smaller brothers from Russia by a family in America and be told that they're going to have this great life. And they come to America and they get off the plane and they look at the older sibling and they say, oh, we only wanted your younger brothers. We're going to put you in a placement home for delinquent youth until you're 18, even though he's never had any bad behavior. Grew up in an orphanage. He's never known love. And now you're going to put him with the delinquent youth of our nation. And you're going to pat yourself in the back because you adopted two people. How sanctimonious of you. When there's justification like that happening in our nation, yeah. Yeah. Personal integrity, personal integral reflection needs to occur more. So that if you're going to hold someone else accountable, you better be ready to sit on that chair by that judge, put your hand on that Bible, and you better be ready to be accountable too. And if we all understood that the same could happen to us just as easily, we would start having a little bit more of a thinking pattern, a little bit better cognition to how we respond to things we don't understand. Because let me tell you, 9 times out of 10 when something's reported is simply something that someone misinterpreted because they did not understand. My name is Elizabeth Waters. I'm a retired parole officer. I've dealt with murderers. I've dealt with sex offenders. I've dealt with every color of the rainbow offender you can imagine. I have worked with children. I have counseled. I have done group therapies for children that have been in state's custody because they have such horrible trauma and addiction past backgrounds. I have seen the horrors on both sides of the fence. And I'm just going to tell you, don't think because you're jumping the fence you're getting away from the horrors. Don't think because you're jumping the fence you're not putting someone in danger. There are dangers on both sides of the fence. Psychology is a wonderful thing to study. Psychology helps us understand motivation and intent and how we grow and how we form and how we become socially responsible and understand our spatial awareness within society. It's great. It's nice to meet you too. It's great that we have this field of study, but it's horrible in many of the components and ways it's been used. So I'm just saying, be careful with your intent, be careful with your energy, be careful with your motivation. Don't hard nose someone else, but then soft line someone else, and because it's socially what you're supposed to do. You better be right in here. Don't worry about a social group holding you accountable. You better be right in here. Because if you do something horribly, terribly horrible to a person, and you realize that later, it's going to eat you in here. It's not going to be someone knocking on your door every day to remind you what you did. You're going to be reminding yourself. So be very aware of what you are doing, and that it is your power that is creating this process, and that you may think you're anonymous, but you will be held accountable in some way, especially if this turns into a criminal issue. Be aware that there are dangers on both sides of the fence, that the child is not truly safe, whether in a family or in an institutional safe hold. There is no field of unicorns and purple ponies to put a child in to where they have the perfect experience. But there certainly are millions of ways to emotionally cripple children who otherwise would have recovered normally, but because of an overly critical therapeutic intervention will now have issues way into their adulthood. I have looked at my supervisors. I have looked at other licensed personnel and said, that is going to do far more damage than handling this issue. Creating this issue and handling it's going to create far more damage than this. Why aren't we handling this? Because this gives us the most funding. I'm not signing that treatment plan. No, I won't do it. The financial motivation behind all these things are definitely obvious once you start to look. Good on you. You went and bought a family groceries. Thank you. Because, yeah, it's things as simple as that. I see a lot of cops do that too. And, you know, there's just something, when you run across these moments where humanity is just salvaged in your mind, it's just a great thing. It's just a great thing. But people think that these government federal programs are not financially motivated, and they are. And then I spoke yesterday briefly. It's the first time I brought it up because I try to ease you into my topics, because I know sometimes I go ankle deep when y'all are just wanting to put your pitties in the water. And I've kind of jumped in this morning, but we'll just jump in it again. I said yesterday that, you know, we not only do we have mass trafficking of children in our nation, but we have what is truly a black market, though it's not considered a black market, though they hide it. We have fetal financial exchanges. We have babies. We have women that go on for abortions at federally mandated and sponsored places. And they think that they're eradicating and terminating a pregnancy. And they don't know that their child is not aborted, but rather birthed alive and then salvaged for parts. And I say that and people go, that's not happening. That's not happening. I can't believe that's happening. It's not happening. Okay, I don't care how many times you say it. Just start to research. It's happening. Start to look at our scientific research. Start to look at the numerology used on scientific research, especially with fetal cell extraction, especially with stem cells, especially with tissues. Look at the studies where they're growing things on the backs of rats. Where do you think those skin cells come from? It takes a live donor in most cases. What's the ethics on that? Murky at best. But do you know that them, by doing that, they then created a secondary black market, which truly is a black market. So it's twice the horror, 2 times the fun. Yeah, the umbilical cord is worth way more than gold. Oh, yeah. And people will say, oh, I can't believe that. So I refuse to research it, and I refuse to even explore the possibility. Well, when you have diarrhea, do you refuse to go to the toilet? Because it works about the same. It's going to happen. So, you know, these are really simple processes. And I'm terribly simple-spoken. I worked with a demographic where you had to be simple-spoken. I am a bumpkin. I cherish my bumpkin roots. I think simplicity is a beautiful thing. And I love working with my demographic, with my geographical area and the people within it. And I've learned that we've gotten on a tangent of big, pretty words with absolutely no meaning to make us feel better. Well, we could really say the nitty-gritty and fix things, but we would rather feel better. Sad. Very sad. But I just see so many adults jumping for convictions, jumping for grab your pitchforks and fire. And it's just like, think. Have 5 minutes of clarity. Stop yourself. Ask yourself 4 or 5 key questions. Why am I doing this? What is my motivation? What could this possibly incur for me down the road? Am I hurting someone more than helping? Pay attention. Am I sitting here and trying to say that no one should ever try to use these intervention programs to salvage a child? No. I'm just saying, be critically minded enough, be aware enough to understand that there is no perfect, safe place for a child. Evil is everywhere. Predators everywhere. And before we knock the family, devalue the family, or remove a child and blow them up till adulthood, be aware of what you're doing. Well, thank you, Raider. I'm not right about everything. Like, there are going to be fall throughs, there are going to be things that trickle through this that need to have been reported and weren't. But that's always going to happen. It's also on the other side going to be things that were reported that shouldn't have. It's a balance. I just think we need to be more balanced. I think we need to be more clear-minded, and we need to have a better understanding about our intent. We need to stop this paranoid delusion that most people are living in. We need to stop feeding into, I think this way, therefore this is the only way to think, therefore if anyone doesn't think this way, they are tragically wrong and demented, and I need to attack them and their world and their being. No. Just take a step back and think if the shoe were on the other foot. Because it very easily could be. So I just wanted to come on here because everybody was like going freaking crazy last night about that Sherfey man. And, I don't know how this is going to end up. I don't know if he's going to get convicted. I don't know, maybe I should do a deep dive. If I felt better, I might. But I'm just saying there's so many ways to hold yourself accountable for the truth, and we don't even do those. So imagine what happens when there's really no truth involved. Hindenburg. And some people get such satisfaction from that, it terrifies me. It terrifies me. And a lot of people on this platform, they love the attention, they love the clicks, they love the self-gratification they get, they love the feeding of the drama, and people get sucked into that, and they don't realize what they're helping to culminate. And it just brews this perfect storm. And I'm like, well, if you had left them alone with their thoughts, instead of, yeah, I agree, and I must be right, 500 people clicked on my video. Leave them alone with their thoughts for 5 minutes. So I know it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I you have to also think of the unpopular opinion. You have to also think of the 1 in a million chance that it's horribly wrong, that your outlook is horribly flawed. You have to kind of balance in that. Because at the same time I'm saying be aware, I understand that there are going to be kids fall through the cracks on either side. I'm very aware of that, and I'm not happy about that. But I've also seen far more damage, long-term damage done by the state, by intervention programs, than I have ever seen done by families. Matter of fact, most of the safe spaces that our federal government creates terrify me. Because of the mentality it creates within that child. About a safe space is isolated away from their loved ones and only offered by a federal power. I had a safe space when I was a kid. I went to the hayloft and thought about things when I got upset. I didn't need a federally mandated place to feel safe. Kids today, they need it. Why? Why do they need a federally mandated safe space? I could take a cane pole and go to the creek. In 10 minutes, have me and Jesus and everybody square. Why are we struggling? Is the struggle profitable? Does the struggle deflect? Does it distract us from something else that's going on? Or does it just give us something to be busy and to feel good about so that we can avoid really looking into the really horrible things that we're allowing to happen? I've worked. I've dipped in the state and federal Gypsy, you're right. I've dipped in the state and federal level of things. And the farther I got up the ladder, the bigger my eyes got scared. I mean, more wide-eyed I turned. It terrified me. It terrified me because I saw exactly what they were doing. Don't think they haven't reverse engineered everything that they're offering you as a benefit. There's a cost to it somewhere. Someone's making money off of you and your plot. You should at least be aware. If you're going to create that plot for someone else, you should at least be aware. Even if it's an ugly thought, research it. Even if you don't want to believe it, research it. The truth is ugly sometimes. And the truth is that we will never stop this. That we're going to have to fight it continuously. But if we keep handing control over to higher powers, we will get to where we're not even allowed to speak about it. And that the government will have complete control. Children will just be extracted and we will not know why. There will be no family court dates. The government will have all the control. Or what, someone that had $40 million bought a new set of lungs from a country that has 3 billion extra people? Let's find the healthiest, the brightest, and the best tissue. Bloop. Where did my child go? Well, as your federal authority, we thought something was sketchy in the home, so we've removed them. They will safely be housed and raised external from you to have a great life. So someone can breathe easy. You don't think these things happen? Shh. I want to bunk with you. I want to live in the glitter and unicorn fart world for 5 minutes. I looked so young for my age when I started in my career. It lasted about 7 years. Because I saw so much more than I wanted to. When you go to a home and have to remind someone that your son-in-law died here last week, and oh, by the way, your house stinks because you've not got the brain matter off your ceiling. And if I'm going to have to supervise you, I don't want to come here and I don't want to smell this. Clean your home. Because they're so numb, because they devalue human life, to devalue what's left when they've taken it. Shit, people. Have some of my nightmares where you wake up to autopsy photos that you've had to explain to the court. And you've seen what the hands of people can do to others. And then tell me how I'm triggering you by having an emotion, by having a thought, by having an opinion. I'm triggering you with an opinion? Aren't you pampered? I've seen the insides of people turn 50 ways to the sun. And I move on and went on with it and worked and made my way and had positive things occur from that knowledge. I didn't break down and crap in my pants and pee down both legs. Sack up. There's a lot. There's a lot being said about stand your ground. Face your fears. Don't take the easy way out. Just because you're feeling an emotion doesn't mean that you are that emotion. You don't have to live there. You're just visiting. Take the bus to the next one. Teach yourself to get on the next emotional bus and go to the next emotional bus stop. Don't dwell. Dwelling does not help. If you're going to dwell, do immersion therapy so it's beneficial. Don't go out and expect everyone to be triggered because you're triggered. Because when you really meet people that have shit to be triggered about, you're going to realize your life was pretty daggum peachy. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now that is not right. And I had a talk with someone earlier this morning. And, you know, I'm not super religious. I have a personal relationship with my higher power that I don't think is any of your daggum business. And I don't think your business is my business in that regard. But isn't it funny how what's occurring lines up with some pretty heavy religious documentation? So is it on purpose, or is it just being psyoped to appear that way? And what is the pro and con of each side of that? And then if you say, oh, psyops don't happen. Really, because they used to have a law that it was illegal to do that to people in America until Obama retracted that law and said that you can pull psychological propaganda campaigns on the American people. When did shit start getting really bad in America? Yeah. I just have a hefty skepticism to everything. Question everything. Even what I tell you, question it, research it, look into it, tear it apart, find your measure with it, and then do what you can do to help society, to help us get back on track. But y'all, be aware, there is no cotton candy rainbow side. There is no safe space. You've been lied to. The children have been lied to. It's fictional. It's fantasy. You want to believe it. That's why you do. Because if you deal with the reality, you might be triggered. But also, if you deal with the reality, you might actually benefit someone and yourself. You might actually change the flow of the way our society is going. So tell me again why people don't handle things and why it's been tossed off on intervention programs and governmental, yeah. Because we might change things. 350 million people in this world might change things. So we better tell them they have no power. We better tell them that they need to take it to us. We'll do it for them. When I had a friend that said, if I grew up raising horses and training horses, if I went to a barn and they knew that I was a trainer and they said, we want you to ride this horse, I already knew I was being put to a test. That horse was going to try to kill me. I was going to have to prove myself in front of God, Jesus, and everybody. So, yeah. Don't think that your government is not doing the same thing. They're testing you. But, reporting agencies, anonymous reporting measures, safe spaces, putting your children in therapy rather than handling family issues, outsourcing to strangers rather than building the family bond. Think about it. Think about it. I've seen so many more people hurt than helped. And I wish it were the other way around. And while I've seen some children truly blessed to have been taken out of scenarios, I've seen more hurt. I've seen more harm done by people that should have had the integrity and the ethical wherewithal to have not done it. And if you think you don't understand or know that parent that you see every other day, do you think you know that official that you've never met? Do you think you know that supervisor or that lead clinician or that lead psychologist that you've never met? Do you know what they're entangled in or what their beliefs are, how they're going to treat that child or what they think is going to be appropriate? But you trust it. Why? Do you watch the process? Do you have consent to know what's going on with that child in treatment? But you trust the process. Why? You don't question it. Why? You're not trained to. You're not trained to. You don't think you've been trained since the time that you first toddled out of your mother's arms? You do not understand sociology, anthropology, theology, psychology. The reality of what we're handling people is terribly scary if you know it. And rather than running from it and offloading it to someone else, sometimes you need to sack up and handle it. Sometimes you need to walk up to somebody and ask a question. Sometimes you need to intervene. Now, I'm not saying get into physical confrontations, but I'm saying if you're going to report something to the state, go up to them and say, hey, listen, I have concern I witnessed this, and I want to talk to you about it, because if I don't feel better about it after we talk, I'm going to have to tell somebody. Do you know what that 30-second blurb might have saved an entire family? Shoot, people. Shoot. There's always going to be people that get it wrong. Yeah, sometimes they get it wrong. There's always going to be children falling through the cracks. That is just a horrible truth. But clinically, I've seen more children damaged by therapeutic intervention and being removed. And I talk about it a lot, especially people in my daily life. I talk about it a lot. And I've kind of hinted and told y'all to be aware and be leery and be skeptical. Because when you really get into the field, you realize that there are a lot of people that are not there for the right reasons. And they almost gravitate towards. You wonder what is really going on. Because if it were working, we would see improvements. Right? Are we seeing improvements? No. No, not. So why aren't we changing our protocol? Because it's benefiting someone. Is it benefiting? Go watch Jesse Peterson on The Fallen State. Go watch his interview with Awkward yesterday. Go and look if you cannot see somebody who is so hypocritical, who doesn't even see that he is using the practices of a group that he hates and says should be abolished. But he's going to use their practices to gain the control they had. Because his group has better intentions. But they need to use the same tactics. You're going to kick a dog, you're going to kick a dog. It doesn't matter what the end result's going to be if you're going to pet it later. You're still kicking the dog. Nobody asked why we're kicking the dog. They just want to know if you're going to pet it later. Because they want to feel better. Yeah, anyway. Big conversations last few days. Yeah, if the next generation can't run the country, what happens? Because right now they can't twiddle the thumbs and tie the shoelaces and chew gum. They see somebody with a Bass Pro hat on, and they get triggered. Meanwhile, someone that's actually been seriously assaulted, molested, victimized, done horrible, keeps their chin up and gets through life without going into that victim mentality. But someone else sees a Bass Pro hat and creates a whole fixation fantasy and reacts, and we're okay with that. Being triggered means that you have a memory of physical or emotional harm done to you that was so atrocious you cease to function when that memory occurs. You cannot be a functioning member of society. So tell me again how you see a Bass Pro hat and you create 14 YouTube videos and 4 speeches and 5 rallies, but you're so triggered and emotionally harmed, you're in danger of taking your own life. Meanwhile, somebody actually has been through hell, sitting there with the chin down, just trying to function. Because that's the goal, right? Function. Function. For real people that have been harmed, the goal is function. I want to function in this society. I don't want this to reign over me. I don't want this to have the power. I want to have the power. I want to function. So why are the people that have the power today the people that can't function? Just questions. I'll leave you to consider them now. Because I'm tired and I still have a cold. I still look like death. And I've got to go drink my water and take my vitamins. I would rather have a positive talk with you, yes. I would rather be bubbling and do a craft and be a Mama Liz today. But today I have to be an asshole. Because there are hard questions in the world that require real thought, real action, and real discussion. Valkyrie, I'm glad to have you here. You're a welcome voice. You don't always have to agree with anything I say, and please, everyone, Be leery of even me. If I'm telling you to be leery and research, even me, everyone you come in contact with, healthy skepticism. Go and do your due diligence. Everybody go and Google New Zealand and nanotechnology. Oh, don't Google it, DuckDuckGo. Google won't let you know. But Google just wants you to have a safe place. They don't want you to be emotionally harmed by bad news. Might dip into their profits. Yeah, some days you do. I woke up the other day when my kids were little. I raised my kids different because I raised my kids in the real world. I dealt with offenders. I dealt with heinous people. I had to talk to my kids about these things, create plans of attack if we were attacked in public, if they were trying to be kidnapped. I had to think about people that went to prison for long amounts of time and would want to hurt me or my children. So I raised my children in a much more reality-driven structure. And so when my kids would come to me, and like my daughter got really mad at me one time because I would not go home and change out of my fatigues before I went to the PTO meeting. It would make her feel better. I would blend in with the other moms. Camouflage has never been my strong suit, just mind you. And I said it would take me 15 miles out of my round. 30 extra minutes. I'm working 11 hours today. I've got 2 hours of drive time. And she went on a rampage, and I timed her. And I took that amount of time, and I went and pulled up a statistic, and I said, the time that you took to yell at me for how you felt about me wearing fatigues and not looking like the other mothers, but everyone in your class wants to be unique. 14 Ethiopians have starved. I don't feel sorry for you, because there's a reality out there that you should acknowledge before your own. Sometimes you have to acknowledge the real truth before you get to create your own narrative. Sometimes you have to pay attention to the bigger picture. And when my kids were like, really, Mom? I would sing the Dennis Leary song, A-S-S-H-O-L-E. If you can't handle me, don't walk out that door and go into society, because there's a bigger heifer than me out there. I have 2 pretty functional young adults. One that's fixing to graduate from vet school and one that's got his own business. So, Billy, that's your theme song. I love that song. I sing it all the time. So, yeah, you just got to raise them to handle this world. We're not raising our children to handle the world because we're not allowed to raise our children, because when we raise our children to handle real emotions and real issues, other people go, is that right? I'm reporting you. I'm scared. You triggered me. Meanwhile, the people that have really gone through shit are just putting their noses down, trying to function. So who has the mic? Not the person that needs it. Not the person that deserves it. So that's just be aware. There's so much to think about, and there's so many ways that this conversation could go, and there's so many counterpoints that people could have to my conversation that need to be had. Go have one on your channel. There are so many other ways to look at this, and they're all healthy. We all need to look at all of them. This is just the way I look at it because of my experience in the field. So it does carry weight. If you have an experience that carries weight, go and do a video and tag me in it, and I'll watch it. But to sit here and say no, that is a sign of stubborn intent to stick your head up your ass and not handle shit. What else do you say no to? Because I bet you it's a lot. And I bet you it's important. And I bet you it would help a lot of people, mainly you, if you handled it. We like to throw darts, but we forget sometimes we're the dartboard. So, yeah. I wish I had better thought pattern today, but I don't. I'm handling some big conversations, and I'm looking at some big issues in our world, and I'm seeing $125 million pushed by a master puppeteer in the world, thinking that what he's going to create with his power, dogma, and money is going to be positive. Research. I'm watching society falter and fall apart because people think in order to feel safe, like if somebody said you have to do 5 cartwheels, pat your head 10 times, and then kiss the ground, and you won't catch any virus ever again, but you have to get 5 more people to do it. Well, that sounds like an MLM scheme to me. I'm sorry. This whole thing that we've been through sounds like a multi-level marketing scheme to me. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Why is it so important to get something in my body? I've had 3 colds, none have been the Rona. I've been able to acclimate my world to take precautions. I think it's more of a when rather than an if scenario, because if it's a virus, we're all going to probably get it at some point. That's how viruses work. We are taxi cabs for viruses. So why is it so important to the point where they're going to tax people for not having it done? What's the motivation there? Because there's no science behind it. Go, DuckDuckGo, New Zealand, and nanotechnology. Scary. And if you think, oh, that's not possible. Really? Because there's a few things that our government does that tells me that those things are completely possible. And that we only get showed half of the 3-ring circus. And only about a 10th of the midway. We don't know what's going on in this world. But you better have a healthy skepticism and a good cognition and a great support system to figure it out. And you better be willing to go into the weird every once in a while. Because I will tell you, after working into corrections and seeing humanity at its worst, it gets dark and weird sometimes. More often than not. So, yeah. Balance. It's all about balance. Be good. Energy. Research. Try to be wise before you're right. That's a big one for me. Try to be wise before you're right. Try to shut your mouth and research something before you think you're right. Make sure you have the wisdom behind your standpoint. So, I just don't see that from many other people. It worries me. Yeah. You know, when you're sick and you have time down and you have these big conversations with people and then you see how it's paralleling with our world, you just need to talk about it. And people say, oh, she's crazy because she's talking about everything. It's called dialogue. It's called communication. It's called brainstorming. It's called laying it all on the table. Why are we so scared about communication these days? Why are the conversations we used to have with friends around the table drinking coffee not the conversations that we can have today? Why are we taking away those outlets? Why are we saying that they're not right? Why are we saying that we have to be accountable to a government official before we're accountable to a friend or a neighbor? Why is there not the same accountability? Why is there not the same expectation? Why is there not the same compassion or care component? Why are you being trained to respond certain ways? Why is the breakdown of the family, even though we have more interventional therapeutic communities and programs, why is the breakdown of the family and the plight of the youth today worse than ever? Just thoughts for today. And please come back and leave me feedback and talk about it. Please. And if you have another point and you have a factual statement or something with evidence, link it below and I'll watch it. And we all need to be having these conversations. Like I said, there are 10,000 other ways to come about this topic. This is just my vantage point from my life, from my time in the field. I would love to hear others, but nobody's talking about it. Because the people that have the wisdom don't want to because they're just trying to function. And the people that are talking about it are in their safe spaces, creating a community of support to attack other people for making them not feel safe. So you want to feel safe, but you feel safe by going into a safe space, getting support, and then attacking someone else and making them not feel safe. Huh. That was a kiss your butt curve, wasn't it? Kissing our butt a lot these last little bit. We're thinking we're going to create a positive way, and then we end up and we're 10 miles behind where we were before we took the corner. But nobody's going, excuse me, this doesn't appear to be statistically driven by empirical data and research. We need evidentiary practices that are working. Why do we keep doing what's not? Why do we keep funding what's not working? Well, it's working at some level. What level is it working at? North America has the largest child trafficking and fetal trafficking markets and black markets because our government does it ever. Oh, and by the way, slavery's still happening over in the East. Just FYI. If you really want to handle slavery, get on a boat and go over there. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about what's actually occurring instead of where it did occur and is no longer? Because if you really wanted to help people that were enslaved, wouldn't the biggest thing be going to where people are actively enslaved and freeing them? Right? But you want to scream at other people that have never enslaved anybody, but their ancestors did, and therefore the blame dripped down like tar resin on a pine tree. So then I can hold you accountable for things that happened 500 years ago? 1,000 years ago? Really? Litigation? Here I go. Really? Logic. Where's the logic to all this? Why, if we flip it, does the logic leave? If you have two sides to a coin and you flip it and it only works one way, only one side's allowed to do it, there's no equality. It's wrong both ways. So why do we flip the coin and when it lands the wrong way from when some people go, oh wait, go ahead. Why would we do that? I don't know. I've just been in a lot of deep thought about the way the world's going. The freaking leader of a country is scared of truckers that park their trucks and said, we want to talk to you. Hi, yeah, we're going to park our trucks right here to let you know that we're here and we want to talk to you. We have a problem with how you're dictating our little country because we're the people that are supposed to be in power. So we're going to park our trucks here and go, we really want to talk to you. Now, we're not going to cause any problems. And we're going to bag our trash up and we're going to have porta parties. And we're going to support and feed each other. And we're going to shovel sidewalks. And we're going to be polite. And we're not going to be in the way of emergency services, and we're not going to give the cops any drama, and we're not going to attack federal buildings, we're not going to burn anything down, and we're not going to go and attack people that are eating at sidewalk restaurants. We're just going to park here and go, we want to talk to you. And he ran like a cat with a tin can tied to its tail. That's a leader? That's a leader? Okay. Mr. Trudeau, if you would like to resign, I will go to Canada and get dual citizenship, and I will do your job. I will do it better. If you ran at people wanting to make an amicable resolution, but you support people that create fiery problems, I'm going to question your sanity. That doesn't seem quite productive to me. It seems like there must be an agenda there. Oh wait, they hid $50 million in Canadian money? Well, who got a piece of that pie? We erase our history. We don't allow people to talk about their ancestry because it may trigger someone else. Like, I have Irish ancestors that were slaves. And when I try to talk about it, I get hammered. How dare you? How dare you try to reduce and take away from... I'm not taking away from you. I'm just saying I understand. It happened to my family too. It's horrible. It's atrocious. And they get mad at me, and I'm like, but you do understand that my ancestors and your ancestors hid in the hills of Appalachia and made communities and intermarried and created a whole little tribe called the Melungeons and lived happily with the natives, and we didn't hate each other until we had governmental aid programs that could benefit us. Why did the hate amp up? Why did it start to subside and we got to a place where we could gel, and then it amped back up when we had the invention of welfare? There could be no alternative theory to holding people financially accountable to a government because they give them everything. That should, no, that doesn't make people, no, that doesn't make people feel like they have to be loyal. No. That doesn't make people say, oh, I need to keep this person in power so I can keep my life the way it is, this comfort, this level of consistency that I feel. I don't want it to change because that scares me. Change scares me. And I don't know what I may have if I step out of the circle, but I know what I have. And I'm okay with having a little rather than taking a chance on possibly having a lot or nothing. I'll just stay here with a little. So I'm going to keep the people in power that give me a little. And what do I have to do that? Okay, just give me a list. I'll do it. And then I'll say, hey, you know, I have biracial nephews. My family looks a lot like yours. And I get called 50 names in repetition, and that I don't have the struggle or the knowledge or the right to talk about my family looking like theirs. Really? I thought we were going for similarities and how we can bond as human beings and create a better society. No? No, because I have nephews that look just like you, and I love them with all my heart. I would take a bullet for them. So I just want to tell you that your thought that I hate you because of the way you look is not founded in reality, because I have family that looks just like you and I love them. So I don't have an animus that gravitates toward appearance. I just wanted to clarify that. Well, okay, you bleep 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 bleep. Ooh, I didn't call you a name. Why are you calling me names? Well, because for 500 years, my ancestors were oppressed, and if all I can do is call you out on it, I didn't oppress them. My ancestors were in the same group. Are you mad at me? Are you mad at the issue? If you're mad at the issue, how are you resolving the issue? Where are you finding a seat of power in this to handle it emotionally, responsibly, productively? Why are you creating more hate if hate was what you didn't want to be aimed toward your family? Why are we being counterproductive with all of this? Why, when I ask for kindness and compassion, am I told that they can give me guilt and anger, but I can't offer a question or give an emotional response? It's not about equality. It's not about equity. It's about power. It's about loyalty. It's about creating a sects of the population so they have pawns. They can move a percentage of this population, a percentage of that population, and save that population for the next big gung-ho movement. And they can stay seated in power because they can create wedge issues and make us hate each other. Because we're too stupid to realize that we should actually be hating them and not each other. Because they're the ones stealing from us and doing everything to ruin our lives. It's like, whoop, hello. I mean, there are some good politicians that I think have some good motivation. You know, and there are snow leopards in the wild. So, just how I think about that. So, I don't know. I just want you to have a deeper perception and understand that you're going to have your own filters and your own bias and your own perception. It's called perceptual filter bias, actually. It's something like that. And understand that you have that, and try to set it aside sometimes and look at things from a different point of view. I try to look at things from about 4 points of view before I try to create a response, because I want to see it from a number of reactionary positions to understand the emotions and the mental reactions and the physical reactions, and I want to understand it from a few avenues before I create a response. And a lot of people don't want to respond, they just want to react. So just be aware. If you're on the internet, please be careful. Please have factual evidence before you state something as true. Have great conversations and huge conversations and world-changing conversations, but do them in a responsible manner, and realize that there is no fictitious, perfect right side to any equation of any horrible issue that we're handling in our world. There's no magic wand. We need to talk about all of it instead of only pulling out certain things. Because we need to have a more well-rounded understanding of what's going on in our world, because a lot of people have just gotten the pawn off. Someone else take care of it. I trust someone above me. They're trained. That's not always the case. Be aware. Yeah, humans are epically flawed, and everything a human will be part of will be epically flawed. And to state that we ever do something with 100% the right intention is epically flawed. So, I don't know. I question myself a lot when I have a thought. I'm like, really? Wait, why did I think that? Should I have done that? How would that be viewed? What would that have created if I had done that in a different, setting? What are the parameters I'm using to measure? And I talk to myself about these things. And I see people that I don't think have done anything except for read a talking points agenda and just memorize the talking points. I want to see the people that are having the deep discussions and have the capacity to go in and change the world with some stand-up integrity and some elbow grease and some grit. I want to see those people stand up and start taking some power again. Annette, I've been just random. I've not been sleeping well, so I've been on earlier than normal, and I'm still super congested today, but I feel a little bit better. But slow process from this creepy crowd I've had. Thankfully, it's still mostly warmer here, so I'm doing better than I was. I just had a lot of thoughts I wanted to get out today, so there they are. Think about them, respond, go into your safe place, and throw a hissy fit. That's so productive. So productive. But if we don't start handling the big topics, if we keep handing stuff to our government and they are this epically screwed up, I don't think they can wipe their own hind end right now. But we keep handing them more and more power and more authority over the small, minute, treasured components of our family existence. What's going to happen if we don't stop this? What's going to happen if the good people don't stand up and say, wait just a daggone minute. Now, this is not working the way that y'all said it would. So we need to revamp this. So why aren't we revamping? And why are the people that want to have revamp conversations not allowed on social media? You might trigger someone. I might trigger someone to make a better decision. I want to trigger some goddamn people. Y'all need to be rocked off your freaking sleep cycles you're on. Going through life thinking everything's just hunky-dory. As long as it's hunky-dory and you can shut your door and hide from the world, everyone else is hunky-dory too. Handle the big shit. And the little shit will disappear. Handle the little shit, you never get to the big shit. Put the little shit aside. Put the big shit. Look at the government.